For decades, the Queen Mother's legendary diamond tiara was thought to be on indefinite loan to royal tradition. But everything changed when Prince Edward emerged from the Windsor Archives, holding a velvet case and a sealed envelope that would throw the monarchy into chaos. Behind the lid was not just a tiara, but a confession, a directive, and a betrayal that no one saw coming, especially not Queen Camilla. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. For years, the tiara had existed as a symbol more than an object, appearing only on the most sacred royal occasions, always shrouded in a quiet reverence that went beyond diamonds and history. It was said to carry the weight of continuity itself, a private beacon of the Queen Mother's vision for what the crown should represent long after her passing. What few ever understood was that she had never truly surrendered ownership of it. Behind the scenes, she had placed intricate conditions on its use, insisting that it be worn only in moments of what she cryptically called true legacy, a phrase that puzzled courtiers for decades and was quietly dismissed as sentimental stubbornness. That phrase, long ignored, would suddenly become the most dangerous sentence in the monarchy. The unraveling began with Prince Edward's sudden, unannounced visit to the Royal Archives late one evening, a move so unusual it instantly set off whispered alarms among senior staff. No press, no advance notice, just Edward moving through sealed corridors with a face described as unreadable, his authority overriding every question. Deep inside the restricted vaults, hidden behind decades of ceremonial ledgers and private codicils, he uncovered a sealed envelope marked in stark, unmistakable ink, Appendix Windsor 4, to be opened upon heirloom inquiry. It was not meant for curiosity, it was meant for reckoning. Those present would later quietly admit that Edward's composure fractured the moment he finished reading the contents. His face reportedly went pale, his hands tightening as if the paper itself carried weight. Within minutes, he summoned a private audience, bypassing protocol in a way that hadn't been seen in years. The urgency of that summons rippled through the palace like an electric shock. Staff, who had seen everything, suddenly found themselves shaken, sensing that whatever had been uncovered was not merely symbolic, it was destabilizing. Whispers leaked before daylight. Not details, not confirmations, just fear threaded through rumor. A directive from the Queen Mother, a condition attached to the tiara, a name written where no one expected it to be. The corridors of power grew tense as alliances quietly shifted even before the truth was known. What had once been a treasured heirloom was now a weapon no one had anticipated, capable of rearranging loyalties with a single sentence. And somewhere deep within the palace walls, Queen Camilla remained unaware that everything she believed about her place in royal history was already beginning to crack. But what exactly did the Queen Mother write in that sealed note? And why was Catherine's name written in ink darker than the rest? They tried to bury it, misplace it, even deny its very wording. But the Queen Mother's handwritten decree was unmistakable, dated, signed, and bearing the royal wax seal. Its contents weren't simply sentimental, they were constitutional, and in the heart of it lay a single instruction, that the iconic tiara be passed only to the woman who embodies our crown's soul. And next to that, just one name, Catherine. At first glance, the parchment appeared ordinary, but the moment Edward touched it, he knew it wasn't. The blue-ribboned Windsor. Stock was rarely used, kept aside only for private royal codicils of grave significance. This wasn't just a family note, or a soft farewell. It was governance from beyond the grave, sealed in protocol, embedded with authority. The Queen Mother's elegant yet forceful script carried a chilling line. Future monarchs may disagree, this must stand regardless. It was not a suggestion, it was a final order. In the pages that followed, Catherine was described in words unlike any ever penned about a royal by marriage. She was called the anchor to a fractured crown, and even more startling, a soul of enduring stillness. It was a poetic indictment of a monarchy adrift, and a call for someone to steady the vessel. The shock, however, was not just in who was chosen but who was absent. Camilla's name was nowhere, Not even a token reference. Despite decades in service, despite her current standing, she was completely omitted. The omission wasn't an oversight, it was intentional. In royal language, silence can be the sharpest dagger. And this silence was echoing through the palace walls, loud enough to splinter alliances. Those closest to the inner circle began whispering whether the Queen Mother had foreseen a future division and deliberately positioned Catherine as the remedy. The weight of that implication hung heavy. A few senior courtiers, already strained from internal tensions, proposed the unthinkable: bury the document, delay its reading, or quietly label it non-binding. Their fear wasn't legality, it was fallout. But Edward stood firm. He refused. To him, suppressing the Queen Mother's final decree wasn't just dishonorable, it was dangerous. Destroy this, he reportedly warned during a tense midnight exchange, and it will haunt the throne for decades. His resolve was unshakable, and for the first time in years, the monarchy faced a decision that couldn't be managed through press briefings or protocol reshuffling. The truth had surfaced, and it bore Catherine's name. But as the ink dried on the revelation, a storm began brewing inside the palace. Camila was furious, and Catherine had no idea what was coming. Camila didn't scream. She didn't cry. Instead, she went dead silent and locked herself in her personal residence wing for 3 days. But behind closed doors, another confrontation was erupting. Catherine had finally been summoned to the Blue Room, where Prince Edward awaited her, tiara box in hand. What was meant to be a moment of honor became a dangerous pivot in royal power. The palace hadn't experienced this level of tension since the aftermath of Diana's funeral. Courtiers moved cautiously, speaking in whispers. Camilla's decision to withdraw from public appearances sparked alarm among advisors. Invitations were declined, charities postponed, and her royal press secretary was silenced. No explanation was offered, none needed. Camilla's silence was not grief, it was fury contained behind shut doors. William, caught between loyalty to his wife and the need to preserve institutional calm, intervened quickly. He urged Catherine to delay attending any emergency meetings, not because she wasn't welcome, but because her very presence now ignited a constitutional firestorm. Every move she made would be watched, twisted, weaponized, but avoidance couldn't last. When the summons came, it wasn't from the king, it was from Edward. The Blue Room was no ordinary location. Historically reserved for moments of extreme royal discretion, it had witnessed abdications, secret votes, and one royal confession that altered a succession. Catherine entered alone. On a table in front of Edward rested the velvet tiara box, and beside it, the Queen Mother's sealed directive. His voice was quiet, his expression unreadable. As she read, her hands trembled. The words struck her like a wave, at once a crown and a burden. She reportedly whispered, "If this was her wish, I won't deny it." But there was no celebration, no triumph. Only a deep, unspoken weight settling into her chest as the parlor. CE scrambled for clarity. Camila made her move. She sent an official request to Lord Mountbatten Windsor, head of the Royal Collection Trust, demanding access to the vault that had safeguarded the tiara for nearly 6 decades. But the request was flatly denied. The Queen Mother's decree had triggered an immediate protocol lock. Only one individual now had ceremonial authority over the heirloom, and that was Catherine. The denial stung, not just because it was public, but because it was irreversible. Camila, once regarded as a stabilizing force within the modern monarchy, had been sidelined by a ghost, and the ghost had chosen someone else. By week's end, the tiara was discreetly removed from the Windsor vault. It was transferred, not with parade or announcement, but with quiet precision, under direct security supervision. It was placed into Catherine's protection not just as an accessory, but as a symbol, a silent coronation, a passing of trust that no ceremony could outshine. And though Catherine remained visibly shaken, the signal was clear. She had been chosen by history, not by inheritance. But the crown was never just jewels and letters. It was lineage, authority, and war behind smiles. And one woman was about to strike back. She had stood beside him for decades. Now Camila needed Charles more than ever. Her plea wasn't just personal, it was political. She invoked her years of service, her loyalty during the darkest royal years. But Charles, caught between past and present, hesitated. And in that silence, Camilla saw the truth. She was no longer the future of the monarchy. In the sanctuary of their private quarters, Camilla's voice was not raised, but it carried the sharpness of a woman who understood the stakes. She reminded Charles of the years she had endured the scrutiny, the scorn, the relentless battle to be accepted. She framed the Queen Mother's letter as outdated sentimentality, written in an era that never imagined the pressures of the modern crown. "She's not ready to carry what I've held," Camilla said softly, but the words cut deep. It wasn't an attack on Catherine. It was a cry to be seen, to be defended. But Charles didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked toward the window, where memories of duty and ghosts of legacy collided. The Queen Mother's decree had left him cornered. "It's deeply inconvenient," he finally muttered, "but binding. You know how she was." That single sentence cracked something in Camilla, because buried in it was the admission that Charles, despite his love, despite his position, could not undo the will of the dead. And outside that quiet moment, the High Council was beginning to fracture. Anne and Edward stood firm they would honour the letter. Anne called it a final truth the crown cannot ignore, while Edward reportedly warned that rejecting it would ignite a precedent no monarch could survive. Andrew, cautious and evasive, remained deliberately non-committal, neither defending nor defying. Behind closed doors, alliances were being measured, not by blood, but by belief in who should hold the crown's soul. Refusing to accept defeat, Camilla turned to legal manoeuvring. She filed an internal request to reclassify the tiara as state regalia, an official designation that would remove it from personal possession and place it under government custodianship. It was a cold, strategic attempt to strip the item of personal legacy and reframe it as crown property. But the petition was denied. The Queen Mother had not just named a successor, she had explicitly written the tiara into private legacy. The classification was final. With no legal grounds left, Camilla's desperation sharpened into defiance. In a late-night meeting with Charles, she gave him an ultimatum. Contest the Queen Mother's decree publicly, or she would step away from the upcoming ceremonies. Let them watch, she said bitterly. Let them see what happens when history erases the living. Charles didn't respond immediately. He didn't have to. The silence that followed said enough. For the first time in her royal life, Camilla saw her position not as secure but as conditional. And somewhere inside her, the fear of becoming a ceremonial ghost had begun to take root. But while Charles wrestled with the living, another voice from the past emerged, this time from Princess Margaret's private letters. No one expected Margaret's name to re-enter the room. But buried among her letters was a cryptic reference to the girl with the Windsor eyes and how the old one saw her as our only bridge. These lines, dismissed as poetic ramblings, took on new meaning when paired with the Queen Mother's decree. Margaret had known, and now the monarchy's old ghosts were speaking again. It was during a quiet inspection of Balmoral's private collection that Princess Anne stumbled across the trove Margaret's handwritten musings. Letters never meant for publication, never indexed by historians. These weren't official correspondences. They were deeply personal reflections, written in solitude, often at night. What began as a mere archival curiosity quickly transformed into something else entirely. Letter after letter painted the outline of a woman not yet in the spotlight, someone whom Margaret described as the sapphire star buried in silence. And the most chilling revelation. These references began long before Catherine officially entered royal life. It was as if both Margaret and the Queen Mother had seen something coming, had felt it in their bones. A quiet prophecy unfolding in real time. Margaret wrote of watching a young woman from afar who held grief like silk and never let the storm own her. Another letter mentioned the girl who watches storms calmly, a phrase eerily reminiscent of how insiders described Catherine's presence during family tensions. One passage in particular stunned Anne into silence. She does not want the crown, which is why it will want her. That line alone, scrawled in fading ink, redefined the family's internal history. This wasn't just the Queen Mother's will. It was a convergence of belief between two powerful royal figures. What the public never saw was that Elizabeth and her sister were often aligned in ways few understood, and through Princess Alexandra's quiet confirmation, it was made known that both the Queen and Queen Mother had, in hushed conversation, referred to Catherine as the heir to sentiment. For Catherine, the emotional weight of it all came crashing down like a wave too long held back. This wasn't about duty anymore, it was about identity. She had become something she never asked to be, the chosen embodiment of a legacy shaped before she could even imagine it. Those around her noted the quiet change. Less a transformation, more an awakening. She reportedly locked herself in her study for hours after reading the letters herself, re-emerging with tear-stained eyes but a face of still resolve. William, sensing the enormity of the moment, gathered their children in the drawing room and read the letters aloud. He ended with one sentence, "You must remember this." But remembrance was not enough. Now came the backlash, and the media storm that would threaten the monarchy's very unity. The press didn't wait for the palace's spin. Leaked details of the Queen Mother's Tiara letter and the decision to assign it to Catherine sent shockwaves across the world. Headlines screamed betrayal, analysts debated legacy. And Camila? She faced the cameras alone, forced to smile while wearing pearls that now felt like iron chains. It started with a meme. Oh, unsigned, unofficial, but real enough to ignite a fire the crown could not contain. The Times ran the story at dawn, a private royal directive, handwritten by the Queen Mother, naming Catherine as the exclusive heir to the monarchy's most iconic tiara. The article didn't rely on speculation. It quoted phrases from the letter, including the now infamous line, "Only she carries the soul of the crown." Within minutes, the media landscape exploded. Every outlet, every region, every royal watcher turned their gaze to the palace. They weren't just reporting, many were rejoicing, proclaiming Catherine the rightful legacy bearer. Others recoiled in outrage, calling it a slight to Camilla's decades of loyalty. Across tabloids and broadsheets alike, headlines emerged like lightning strikes. Catherine crowned by ghost. Camilla overruled from beyond, the monarch who speaks from the grave. Public sentiment turned with a force no advisor could have anticipated. Social media crowned Catherine as the chosen royal, a title that spread with hashtags and viral fervor. Millions shared clips of her past speeches, dissected her every appearance, elevating her not just as a modern duchess, but as the emotional epicenter of a wounded monarchy. The irony was sharp. While Catherine had done nothing to seek the spotlight, history, it seemed, had pushed her into it. And in the shadow of this rising adoration stood Camilla, enduring the full glare of public scrutiny. Her silence, once a symbol of regal composure, was now read as isolation. Her pearls, once symbols of grace, now seemed like shackles of a fading era. Camilla swiftly cancelled 2 major engagements, a state visit appearance and a charity gala, citing unforeseen emotional toll. But few were convinced. It wasn't grief that silenced her. It was humiliation. She was no longer being questioned in whispers, but in editorials and headlines. Paparazzi besieged Balmoral and Clarence House, hoping for a glimpse of the tiara exchange or some unguarded look that might hint at collapse. The palace's communications team entered crisis mode, but no statement could compete with the sheer emotional velocity of the leak. Every official remained tight-lipped, every insider suddenly unavailable. It wasn't just damage control, it was paralysis. Advisors attempted to unify the messaging, but their efforts fell apart beneath the weight of one critical failure. No one could refute the Queen Mother's words. They had been written, signed, and confirmed. The crown was facing a battle it could not win with protocol or press releases, and all the while the silence from Catherine's side only deepened the mystique. She had said nothing, yet her presence loomed everywhere, on screens, in conversations, in the frightened glances exchanged within the palace walls. And then, without announcement, Catherine stepped out wearing the tiara, and the monarchy's path was changed forever. It wasn't a coronation, but it felt like one. As Catherine walked into Westminster wearing the Queen Mother's diamond tiara for a diplomatic ceremony, the entire chamber rose to its feet. Cameras flashed, diplomats wept, and somewhere deep inside the palace, Camilla reportedly turned away from the television and shut the door. No announcement had been made. No hint dropped to the press. The appearance of the tiara came not as a planned unveiling, but as a moment of deliberate silence that echoed louder than any proclamation. The Commonwealth Gala had been scheduled for months, a formal gathering of heads of state, a celebration of diplomatic unity. But from the instant Catherine entered the room, all protocol dissolved. Conversations ceased, glasses stilled mid-air, and then, without cue, every guest stood. The tiara was instantly recognized not just tea for its brilliance, but for the memory it carried. It hadn't been seen in public since the Queen Mother's final state dinner. Now, reborn on Catherine's head, it returned as more than an heirloom. It was a message. In hushed voices, foreign dignitaries offered private congratulations, many whispering variations of the same phrase. "It feels right." One South African official was overheard calling it a return to soul, while a Canadian delegate declared it a reconnection with the Crown's conscience. It wasn't about style or fashion, it was about symbolism. And the message was unmistakable. The Queen Mother's wishes had triumphed, not through force, but through quiet, sovereign certainty. The sight of Catherine, graceful, composed, untouched by scandal, wearing that specific piece, in that specific room, reshaped the mood of an entire institution. It was legacy incarnate. Amidst the ceremony, in a moment few noticed at first, Prince George leaned over and whispered to Charlotte, "That's Granny's crown." Simple words, but devastating in their honesty. Even a child could feel what others tried to politicize. In the royal viewing chamber back at Windsor, Camila remained silent. Aides later confirmed she had watched the event alone. When asked by press afterward for a statement, her office declined. There was nothing to say. Not anymore. Edward, watching from the gallery beside Anne, was approached by a senior envoy who asked whether the Queen Mother's instructions had been political in nature. Edward replied quietly, "It was never about politics, it was never about titles, it was about the heart that guides it." That one sentence, shared hours later across global headlines, reframed the entire narrative. The tiara wasn't a symbol of hierarchy, it was a compass, and in the eyes of those who had lived through 3 generations of royal storms, it had now found its true no. But the storm had not passed because a second item was discovered in the envelope Edward found, and this one had implications far beyond jewelry. While the world debated the tiara, Edward remained silent about the second envelope. Marked addendum, eyes only. High Council, it was tucked beneath the tiara's casing. When opened, it revealed a stunning twist. The Queen Mother hadn't just named Catherine as recipient of the tiara, she'd outlined a future role, one that bypassed Camila entirely. What lay inside that addendum was not ceremonial, it was strategic. A vision penned by the Queen Mother for what she called the sole protector of royal continuity. And at the heart of it, again, was Catherine. Not as consort, not even as queen, but as something unprecedented archival guardian of the royal line's spiritual legacy. It was a role not recognized in any current charter, yet deeply rooted in traditions older than the modern monarchy itself. A protector not of power, but of memory. A silent overseer of the unseen history, entrusted with the stories, symbols, and truths too sacred for public hands. This was not a title that could be inherited. It had to be chosen. And she had been chosen by a woman long gone, whose will still pierced through royal chambers with haunting clarity. The addendum made reference to an obscure file appendix Clarion stored not in London, but under lock and seal at Holyrood, within Princess Anne's jurisdiction. That document, still unopened at the time, reportedly contains instructions regarding the transference of spiritual regalia, personal correspondences, and uncirculated codicils belonging to Queen Elizabeth II herself. In a move that could no longer be dismissed as oversight, Camilla's name was once again entirely absent. Anne, however, was mentioned by title and tasked explicitly with delivering the second seal to Catherine. Mark. The final handover of hidden custodianship. Edward said nothing to the press. He didn't need to. His silence was a shield, not just for Catherine, but for the entire House of Windsor. The implication was thunderous. If the Queen Mother had not trusted Camila with the legacy of memory, what else had she kept from her? And now, with this new role assigned, Catherine was no longer just a symbol of stability, she had become the gatekeeper of the crown's unseen truth. Advisors were shaken, insiders re-evaluated loyalties, even Charles, bound by blood and duty, found himself in unfamiliar territory. For 72 hours the king said nothing, no statements, no audiences, no comments. Then suddenly he summoned both Anne and Catherine to a private meeting at Clarence House. No record was kept of what was discussed, no photographs released, but sources close to the chamber confirmed one thing: Charles did not contest the Queen Mother's vision. And so the monarchy pivoted again, without pageantry, without press. The legacy of Elizabeth, Margaret, and the Queen Mother was now tethered to a woman they had watched, in silence, shaped from a distance, and entrusted with far more than the world ever imagined. But just when the monarchy thought the revelations were over, one more name entered the story, and it would leave them breathless. Inside a faded letter never before revealed to the public, the Queen Mother's last handwritten note penned from her bed at Royal Lodge held just 3 words: "Protect her, Catherine." And those 3 words now haunt the crown, because they weren't just instruction, they were prophecy, and every move made since has fulfilled it step by heartbreaking step. The letter was discovered unexpectedly tucked deep within a folio of Princess Margaret's personal archive, long thought to contain only trivial reflections and holiday notes. It was Anne who authorized the review, never suspecting that the final piece of this legacy would be buried not in ceremony, but in secrecy. Its authenticity was verified within hours by royal calligraphy experts, who confirmed the script as the Queen Mother's unmistakable hand. No date, no preamble, just the crown's seal at the top, and beneath it those 3 words: deliberate, personal, and eternal. Protect her, Catherine. It wasn't a formality, it was a lifeline cast forward, beyond the reach of doubt. It is believed to be the final message the Queen Mother ever wrote, drafted just days before her passing. She had not sent it, she had not spoken of it, she had simply trusted it would be found by the right hands at the right moment. And when it was finally placed in Catherine's palms, the weight of it shattered her. According to those present, she wept openly, clinging to the page as if it held the last heartbeat of a woman she never truly knew. Her voice, fragile yet defiant, whispered the words no one could unhear: "Why me?" And the room went still. There was no answer that could ease her, only the silent acknowledgement that this was no longer about choice. It was destiny, written not in ambition, but in sacrifice. William stepped forward, arms wrapped around the woman now carrying not only the hopes of a nation, but the silent burdens of its past. "We will fulfill it together," he promised, his voice steady, his eyes fierce. No press cameras, no headlines, just a quiet vow between husband and wife, monarch and guardian. Meanwhile, Edward oversaw the placement of the letter into a sealed glass case, displayed within the Royal Private Archives, a place where only a select few would ever enter. Beneath the glass, a single inscription was etched by his hand: "Our new covenant." No further explanation was given, none was needed. Every figure in that room understood the significance. It wasn't about succession anymore, it was about preservation. As factions within the monarchy continued to realign, one truth had settled like ash. Across every chamber of the palace, the Queen Mother had chosen Catherine long before anyone else did, not because of title, not because of protocol, but because she saw what others had not. And now the letter had become the final thread tying past to present, hope to legacy. The storm had passed, the ghosts had spoken, and Catherine now stood, not just as heir, but as the keeper of memory. And as the crown evolves, one legacy remains untouched. The soul of the monarchy now rests where the Queen Mother intended, on the head of a woman who never asked for it, but who carries it with grace, memory, and fire. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.